Hello, and welcome to tonight's episode on the High Republic. This is the Cosmic Force podcast, a Utini network show as we talk about all the great things that are coming and going in the comic universe of Star Wars. But I'm not doing the show alone. Tyler, unfortunately, is out playing a nurse to his whole family, but I will be stepping into his shoes. But we have several other people that I want to introduce to you tonight. So without much further ado, Emma, how are you doing?
I'm doing well despite all of the technical difficulties that have been happening the last 2 weeks. Literally, it's funny. Somebody mentioned in the chat, I think it was Justin, if my memory serves me right, 3 times a charm. It was 3 times a charm last week, and now it's 3 times a charm again this week, and I'm just highly concerned. But we got it going. It's good, and talking High Republic is always good. And by the way, you guys, I changed up my background a little bit. I had to move, my special edition High Republic books, and I put, let me see, yeah, right here, my special edition box set, all signed, nice prominent position on my bookshelf. And I also up here is my Skywalker saber I got at Disneyland. So feeling pretty good about my new setup.
Yes.
Really
And how could I forget the 2 signed Funkos I got right there.
Woo!
I really
You're
did
really
some
flexing it off.
some cleaning up today, so yeah. But yeah, really excited to talk High Republic. It really hit me in the feels again reading it.
There's a lot of that going on along. But
Yeah.
before we get too deep into this, Timothy, how are you doing? Joining us from your long California vacation. Oh my
doing
lord!
doing so well. I'm doing so well. And just like Emma, I
Yes.
also got these
wow.
bad boys signed. It's gorgeous.
Wasn't it you that had that great idea, Timothy?
It was not me. Credit goes to either Andrew or Oz. I can't remember which one, but we were all standing in line together and someone was like, hey, you should just rip the plastic off and get them to sign it. And I was like, oh my God, that's brilliant. I also did build myself a lightsaber, which is wonderful. But anyways, we'll get to all the celebration stuff later. But I am living life. I am doing well. And Stick Jacob also says hello.
Oh, he lives.
Stick
He
Jacob.
lives.
He does live.
Perfect. Well, and you might have already heard him in the background, but we are joined by another, Timothy's our permanent special guest, but now we have a less permanent special guest, but he has joined us before, Eric.
All right. End of phase 1. Okay, great, guys. I did it.
You finished it. Congratulations.
Perfect. Just in time. You're a pro now.
What's up, folks? So happy to be here tonight to talk some High Republic. Emma sent me a Slack message about 2.5 hours ago. I was like, hey, what you doing tonight? And I'm like, well, I guess we're doing this. But always happy to jump in and chat with you guys. Obviously, love these comics. I got a chance to reskim today. I have my High Republic books from Celebration, but I only gloat on my own show on Mondays. So that is behind me. And actually will be shown off in a different part of Utini, which we'll talk about a bit later. But very excited to be back talking High Republic. I do that every day to myself anyway. So why not the week after I'm trying to recover from COVID, do 2 whole podcasts about it. So
yes. Well,
happy to be here.
By the way, I did message him very last minute, but I want to state, I already told him this, but I want to state it to the masses. I love this man so much for many reasons. This is one of them. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It is sent back, and I can't wait to talk about the emotional devastation that Kevin, Scott, and Ariana and Dito put us through, and how demented Charles' soul is as a human. It's gonna be great.
Awesome. Love it. So looking forward to it.
Absolutely. So if you are joining us for the first time, welcome. We, as I mentioned at the top of the show, are a Star Wars comic podcast. We broadcast here live, right here on youtube.com/utini every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. If you can't join us live, that's great. Just join us when you can. We're also available across all of your favorite podcast platforms. We're also a part of, speaking of podcast platforms, the Utini network of shows with a Discord channel at utini.com/Discord with over 1,000 members, dozens of channels to choose from, and a great, lively, curated community. like what you see and want to say thanks, then head over to Patreon at patreon.com/Youtini. That's YOUTINI, where for as little as $5 a month, you can get exclusive access to the entire podcast network of shows, as well as exclusive merch, community involvement, and activities. Emma, do we have any new patrons this week?
Not this week. Sorry, I was just shoving my face with ice cream.
It's perfect timing.
Great.
We're always on.
Because if you're in our Patreon community, it's like you're getting ice cream every month, basically.
Yes.
Or every day.
Well
Every day.
done.
Amazing.
Every single day, actually. There's so much content you could do it every day. But we do have some new content coming down the pipe. Cameras were out everywhere during Celebration, so get ready for some new content from there. We have a behind-the-scenes look at Jared's tattoo, which I'm so excited for. And then we also have Eric. Do you want to talk about this? You're planning on doing a little something.
Yeah, so I know we've been showing off these High Republic box sets that we got of the exclusive editions from Celebration. We saw some photos, but I decided that I've never done one of these before. I have not opened mine yet. I did not get mine signed under the plastic. They're still pristine and sealed. However, I'm going to. I love these. These are mine. I'm not selling them away. So what I'm going to do, I am going to do a little unboxing whenever I do that. I was going to do it this past weekend, but like I said, I did unfortunately get COVID at Celebration, knocked me out a little bit, but I'm feeling way better. So my goal is within the next week to do a full kind of unofficial fun unboxing to show you guys what those editions look like, give you my actual first account of opening each book, show you the signature pages, show you all the extra stuff they did, and that is going to be exclusive to Patreon. So I'm very excited to show that off for you guys.
Exactly, because Eric will probably be swearing a lot because he'll be so excited, and we need we need to censor that for the masses.
I have to say, I wish that I recorded myself opening them because it was quite the experience. Like, I mean, I had kind of seen a few pictures on Twitter and stuff, but oh my god, just like the feeling of them, like in person, is so awesome. So I really can't wait for that. I know we actually got a few comments on some of our living forces, because I'm manage our YouTube channel, so I get to see all the notifications that come in. So if you have any mean comments about me, just know I see everything.
You see all of them.
And I saw there's like a couple people like requesting it in the comments of, I think it was a living force. So I'm glad that we are doing that. And then the other thing that we have from Celebration is I'm working on a huge documentary of our time at Celebration. And frankly, it's extremely long. Our first day, like, I think we were pretty like vlog happy, I would say. Like, that was the day we got the most footage from.
It's our first time, feeling it.
So I put the first day together and it was an hour long. And I was like, oh, okay, that needs to be cut down quite a bit. However, I will be putting the full cut, like the super cut, up on YouTube for our patrons to see, and then the general public will get like the trimmed down version. This is like the Snyder cut. It's the part cut of the
yes.
All for it.
Yeah, definitely be looking forward to that. It'll probably take me a little longer to do. It's taking me longer than I thought because like all of the metadata in Google Docs or Google Drive got like destroyed. So now I'm like using everybody's t-shirts to try to figure out what day everything's from, and it's getting a little complicated. So but yeah, definitely keep your eyes out on for that, and we'll tweet about it and stuff. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. I think we've got some really fun Patreon content coming up for everybody. So yeah, I hope everybody feels good about that.
Yeah, I think we're really going to try to take our Patreon post-Celebration, because obviously everything before Celebration was trying to get to Anaheim. Everything that we had was focused on creating that booth, getting the panel together, getting all the logistics together. And now that we're back, a lot of us really have this kind of fervor to put a lot of content out for our patrons who got us there and who will continue to make so many things amazing in the future. So I think a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff we're going to try to put out, even if it's like, am I building a Lego on Saturday? Great, I'm going to do a time-lapse, throw it on Patreon. It's like, oh, are we going to a comic book shop? Great, we're going to film and put it on Patreon. We're going to try to get better about showing you the inner workings of the Youtini team, because that's who you're supporting if you go to patreon.com/Youtini, and we want to be as personal and as open as we can, and and kind of give you that side of our company. So look forward to that more 2022, especially if you want to wait, hold on. This is mirrored this way. If you're watching us on video and you want some Patreon suggestions, talk to this fella in the bottom right corner. Timothy is our Patreon manager. So if you're on Patreon, hit him up in the Discord or Patreon message or Twitter. Send him a letter. I think if you can find his address, we're not going to tell it to you, but if you find it, send him a letter and tell him what you want on our Patreon, and we'll do it what we can, right, Tim?
And then I'll slap you with a restraining order.
Somewhere in the southeast.
A Patreon exclusive restraining order.
Yes, after I give you a hug for finding me.
There it is. Very excited.
All right. So, well, we don't want to waste too much more time because we got a lot of content to get into volume 3. It's a large volume, but we'll keep trucking along. We have a weekly poll list. Let's see, Emma, do you want to handle that one?
Yes, I've got it. So we have 2 new comics out today. First up is Star Wars 2020 number 24, called The Final Hunt, written by Charles Soule, with pencils by Ramon Rosanas and Madibek Musabekov. I definitely should have read that before I said it. Sorry.
Nailed it.
Colors by Rochelle Rosenberg, letters by Clayton Cowles, and cover by Carlo Pagulayan, Jason Paz, and Rochelle Rosenberg. And then we also had another one, which is kind of interesting and new, kind of a new idea that we haven't really seen before. It's called Chrysanthemum, Star Wars Tales number 1. This is by Jason Aaron and Kieran Gillen, with pencils by Mike Diodato Jr., Mike Mayhew, Mark Lamming, and Will Sliney, with colors by Salvador LaRocca. This is, now, Caleb, I think you kind of knew, or somebody knew a little bit more about what was collected in this. Do you want to kind of explain what this is all about?
Timothy, I think you got it.
It's essentially, I think, just living into the hype of seeing Chrysanthemum in live action and getting all this really cool content with him, that they decided to basically give a greatest hits trade paperback of his more prominent issues in the Star Wars main runs and stuff. So I think it's cool. I forgot that it was coming.
You probably already own them though, so don't buy them twice unless you're Emma.
I know, don't do what I did.
Yeah, but it is really cool to get like a concentrated look at where he has popped up before. So yeah, I'm glad they're doing it, but it's an interesting choice.
Yeah, I think it's great for like people that haven't read Star Wars comics but are like, you know, heard on social media or whatever about this, you know, new character from Book of Boba Fett, and that, oh, he got to start in comics. I wonder what that was all about. Which issues should I read? Here you go. And so I think it's good in that way. I think, you know, for people like us that have already read them, it's like, oh, okay. You know, we can be happy that, you know, hopefully we get some new comics fans out of it. I think it's very possible. So as always, all of the links to all of these books are in the description below if you'd like to get your own copies.
Absolutely. So, yeah, I said, I was really excited about that one. So let's move on to what we're loving. Let's, again, try to touch on this. I know most of this is like coming down after Celebration and opening up your books and everything. So, Timothy, do you want to start us out?
Yeah, sure. So since I was not here last week, I just wanted to give an update of what my celebration was like. And I absolutely loved every second of it. It was my very first time. I've already shown off the books and the lightsaber, so I don't want to make you any more jealous. I'm not going to show them again. I did, related to our show, I did finally pick up the trade for Trail of Shadows. So I'm so glad, and it is gorgeous. Again, I rated this a masterpiece when we covered it a couple weeks back. So I was like, it makes sense. I have to have this in person. So that was fun. But I think one of my favorite parts, honest to God, about Celebration was hanging out with Emma the amount that I did. It was so cool. Like, one, just to see everybody, like to get the whole team or as much of the team as possible together at this. We had like 18 folks there. And then like just to pal around and kind of break off into different groups. And Emma and I ended up being tag team for like a lot of it. We got to go to most of the major panels together, and I got to like watch her reaction to taking a picture with like Rose, and then like getting to talk to Ashley Eckstein. And like, I know that I didn't do these things, but like being there for it and seeing like the enjoyment on your face and everything was so cool. So it was like getting to like, I was at Celebration, but also living Celebration vicariously through you. And that was dope.
So that was so nice. I loved hanging out with you too, man. It was great to just like get to know you a little bit more and Yeah, you were such a champ, pushing me around a ton, like absolute
So
champ.
fun.
Really appreciate you, man. Ton
Yeah.
of fun.
The
Yeah,
two
of
best
course.
parks in Anaheim are Disney and Emma.
Oh,
Yeah.
dang.
Damn.
Easily.
But it was a blast. And like getting to meet the High Republic authors and tell them how much the books meant, you know, to those of us that have read them and have been so passionate about this era that we're in now, was just a really cool experience. And there's nothing like being in the same room with 60,000 people or however many were there, you know, like experiencing and loving the same things that you do. Like to be there in that and to feel that. It's like just being seen in a whole new way. Really loved it. So yeah, that's my update.
That's great. And you kind of had, you know, your own like mini adventure afterwards, right? You were like the only one that did this.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So then we decided to go crazy. And my wife and I then did just a California excursion. So we went to 4 national parks.
nice.
And I had to pay some homage at the very end of the trip. We started with Star Wars Celebration, and I did not get a picture to throw up ahead of time. My bad, Emma. But then I got to take a picture in front of the Yoda fountain at Lucasfilm.
Cool.
It's
And just-
amazing.
We'll have to
That's
show
how we
everybody next
capped-
week because it's
Yes.
too cool.
I will make sure to get it next week. I definitely repped the Utini shirt though. So we have
Good
made
man.
a presence and impact there. So we are that much closer to a buyout, right, guys?
Yes,
Yeah,
that's how that
exactly.
works.
The ultimate Utini end goal.
The
Yes.
email is in the bio. Just let me
Yes.
know, guys.
I love
Everything
that.
has a price.
You had such an epic trip, man. Like that's awesome.
It's so fun. I am dog tired though.
As
I bet.
absolutely. All right. Not. I don't think we'll be able to top that, but I'm reading Lords of the Sith.
Oh,
Hey,
that's a good
it was
one.
an
Yeah.
It's a
excellent.
fun one.
It's good. It's good. Like I definitely again with a lot of these ones, it's like, you know, for those who don't know, essentially it's a Darth Vader and the Emperor are stuck on a planet, specifically Ryloth, as like the many forces conspire to try to kill them. Like, you know that they're not going to die here, but it is sometimes fun to see that and go through. I will say one thing that I kind of, this is going to sound really weird, but I do wish that one time we would get like a really just gritty, like hard R, like Star Wars, like short story or like novel. I don't want all Star Wars to do that, but just like
Mhm.
Yeah.
in the intro, like in the beginning, they had one character who was talking about like her terrible times in like the absolute, you know, bottom rungs of the Ryloth, like, you know, society. It's like, man, I would love to see like a really cyberpunky, just, you know, ultra violent, like, you know,
Like
Star
dystopian
Wars.
Star Wars. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I want to see that, you know, in a certain like context sort of thing. You know,
Yeah.
like that with what was that book I read a while ago? Like Altered Carbon sort of thing. Just that really
Oh, wow. That's a
really-
name I haven't heard in a hot minute. Yeah.
exactly, that really like
Yep.
dingy sort of like, this is rough and I don't like it very much sort of Star Wars. Like
Yeah.
this is
That's my
this
favorite
is
kind of
this
Star Wars.
Lords of the Sith is a bit more like Papa Vader and Papa Palpatine, just buddy cop movie.
There's
Yeah.
a bit of that, yes.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
dark, but it's a little light at the same time. It's
Yeah,
weird.
I've always said it is a Vader Palpatine book on the cover, but in the inside, it's actually way more a Cham Syndulla book.
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
there's a lot
Exactly.
more of Ryloth politics, which is like fine. But if you look on it and you're like Caleb said, like you're wanting that like, oh, Vader and Palpatine go to town. It's like,
Well,
yeah.
I said I don't really want a Vader Palpatine go to town. I've seen that enough. I said I want to see like, you know, really like I want to see like a book without any like Jedi, just like, you know, talk about like spice addiction. That's it. I want the
Spice
train
addiction.
spotting of Star Wars.
Okay.
all right, Caleb, we'll put it on Kickstarter, see what happens.
Yeah. Your book updates
Uh.
always fascinate me because I feel like you're kind of like working your way through canon. It seems
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah, I'm
So-
jumping around.
Yeah, you know, just I never know what you're gonna be reading next. It's like it's so interesting to me. But I remember like Lords of the Sith was actually like the first. It was one of the first books I read, and I had like recently finished Rebels, and that was like the first book where I was kind of like, wait a second, I know that guy from like
Yeah.
I know
something else.
Mr.
You know, Cham.
Syndulla.
And I like
Yeah.
that
you
Syndulla
know
dude.
connected the dots for the first time, and it made me feel like, oh, like reading books is like super cool because you know you get to know
Yeah.
these like inside things. So that's
Take
that.
a blast from the past, even though it wasn't that long ago.
Yeah, Caleb, I want to jump on yours to say what I'm reading because I have a similar book. You've been reading Lords of the Sith. I've been fortunate enough to be reading Shadow of the Sith,
yeah.
which is the review copy that just came our way for the upcoming book by Adam Christopher. Here, I showed this off on Twitter. I haven't even showed this off on Living Force
that
yet.
a direct sequel?
No, it has the word Sith in it though. It does have though our favorite.
No, it shares 3 of the same words.
Look at that.
Okay, so
yeah,
this is a very.
Sith.
I love this comics reference basically.
Yeah. Yes, this what is he? A Glup Shitto, as he's called on Twitter, Ochia Bastoon, and Luke and Lando. It's very good. It's a thick, chunky boy. You can tell kind of where I am. I'm getting there. They did move up the embargo for reviews on this to June 14th. I got an email. Of course, our Utini review always comes out the day of release, so this will be up on the 28th from us. So yeah, I can't say anything about it, but that's what I've been reading lately. Like you, Tim, at Celebration, I also bought Trail of Shadows because I read it back when it came out. Also thought it was a masterpiece. And when you guys did your roundtable, I was in the chat and I was saying, "Oh, I gotta buy this physically." And luckily, when we all went to get the High Republic authors' autographs, you needed to buy a physical book in order to be allowed into the signing. And I realized I had, for better or worse, owned every single piece of merchandise they had except Trail Shadows, and I was like, nice. It's fate. It's fated to happen. Although hilariously, I didn't get it signed. I got a poster signed, so it is an unsigned copy of Trail Shadows. But yeah, that's what I'm loving so far. Of course, I read read Star Wars today. Always a good time going to Charles Soule Star Wars. But I will say, just because I haven't been on the show since it happened, a quick shout out to a completely unrelated comic, which is that Han and Chewie comic, the limited series. Yes. I've really been liking that a lot.
Is that a limited series?
I think it's only like 5 or 6, if I remember correctly. I might be wrong on that, but I'm enjoying it a lot, and I want to give it a shout out. And of course, one of the highlights of Star Wars Celebration was the High Republic panel where we heard about the upcoming comics, the Blade. The next High Republic volume, Claudia Gray's comics. So much stuff coming up there, and that's
those are such
a
good
lot
shout
of what
outs.
I'm loving.
Such
I love them. They're
I
so
feel like
good.
we don't talk about the Han and Chewie comic enough. I don't think
it's very under the radar.
Very under the radar. Yeah.
So we only have 2 issues out now, so we can't even do a roundtable on it yet.
Not yet,
pretty sure, and I feel like it had to have gotten delayed because they all do. Naturally, but I feel like there's a long time between issues.
Yeah,
they needed to do 84 issues of Crimson Rain beforehand.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely loved it.
Oh, great stuff. So I think we're going to take a super quick ad break. Gather
I'm gonna
our
reread
thoughts.
this over the break.
Yes, we're gonna do a quick skim, super fast read, and then come back and discuss everything about the High Republic Volume 3. So we'll be right back.
Wait, what happens to Starlight Beacon?
It's the best back cover since Star Wars Episode 1 hardcover novelization. The one with young Anakin, because on the back, just to remind y'all, is a full headshot of Watto.
It's so big.
I think I brought this up on one of the earliest episodes of the Living Force ever, and I thought I'd bring it back.
Oh my God, yeah.
Series and all of Legends. What do you guys think? Could it be the X-Wing series? Might just be the most romance-intensive series ever. And we're not just talking about the scene where Corran Horn describes his love affair with an otter. I mean, a Salonian that he hooked up with her and then he broke out in chives.
Yeah, not chives.
Not chives. What's it called? The bumps?
Hives, dude. Hives.
Chives go on your potato.
I'm hearing you say the same thing.
Chives, what you put on the under potato. No C. Hives.
Hives.
Not chives.
What did I say?
Chives.
It's not a very common story to approach. Yeah, again, drawing the complex family tree of Django to clone identical son to clone all identical millions of sons, but they're a generation older. So then the son is kind of all Django's equal, but then Boba is a generation younger, but then that clone's son is Boba's age, but then is Boba his dad or his nephew or his uncle or his cousin? It's like
It's just not right, guys.
Exactly.
Just
It just
fire
exploded. It
God.
just died. So
lots of death.
again, we are here to talk about the High Republic trade paperback number 3, which which was created and written by Kevin Scott for the main run, and also Charles Soule for the Eye of the Storm issues 1 and 2, which are also included in this one. The pencilers include Georges Ginchi, Ario Anandito, Gilmore Sana, and the covers were by Phil Noto. Again, it collects issues 11 through 15 of the High Republic and the Eye of the Storm, a 2-issue miniseries. In total, it was released on May 3rd, 2022. So, with that bit of dryness out of the way, let's talk about some initial thoughts. We're not going to rate it just yet, but just some initial thoughts. So when you think of the High Republic Volume 3, about the ending, what springs to mind?
My heart hurts. That's what I think of, like, just the most, like, gut-wrenching Star Wars that there is, and we see it from so many different perspectives, and this is just another one. And also, I think, like, specifically with this one, I usually think a lot of, like, Avar's sort of, like, turn and then kind of, like, coming back again. That always really stood out to me because it was very unexpected. Like, you don't expect, like, the hero of Hetzal to kind of go dark there. And then she does, and then it kind of makes you wonder, like, what's going to happen next? Like, what are we going to see next from her? Is that going to change, like, her relationship with others? And, I kind of forgot a little bit who, like, survived, because, just between the fallen star and everything, and just seeing that Kyiv survived made me feel very happy, because every time I read a High Republic comic, I'm like, oh, she's such a good character. Like, I love her so much. So all I think about really is just, how solid of an ending to an arc this was. Like, it felt very satisfying and nothing felt rushed to me.
Yeah. I also love that you bring that up, Emma, because, I forget who survived, because that was such the tagline for everything in this wave was who will survive, like literally on posters and showing all of them. And it was such a question. And I think you're completely right that the impact of the story doesn't get lost in the question of only caring about who survives. I think Kevin handles it well, which I'll go into detail when it's my turn. But I love that you said that. I had to jump on that phrasing. It was really, really good.
And unlike a lot of other comic series, these characters are staying dead. There's not going to be a reboot. We're not due for a 52 reboot sort of thing, so we can get a Skier back.
We're not going to get the blip. In 5 years, everyone wakes up and was like, "God, the Nameless," and it's like, "No, bro."
but Caleb, we didn't see Skier die though. So.
Okay. No, just like we didn't see Mace Windu die.
That's true.
Correct.
Well, he's actually alive. Yeah. So.
As much as I don't like
he'll
it,
pop up
he's
in
alive.
phase 3.
And just like we didn't see the Emperor actually die, he just was flown down that reactor shaft at the end of episode 6.
You know what? Why have not? We should just make 2 Utini shirts, and we should only ever sell 2, and one should be Mace Windu lives, and one should be Mace Windu died, and just see what sells better.
Yes.
And that would be it.
Instead of doing a simple Twitter poll, we do some sort of scheme for us to make money.
Merchandising.
Yes.
Merchandising.
This is the Ahsoka lives, Mace lives hashtag that we need to push.
Yes.
So
yeah. All right, Tim, save us from this craziness. What do you think about this one?
No, when I reflect on this volume and having reread it again today, Cav just absolutely nails the relationship drama, I think. I mean, all of the High Republic is built on relationships, and like this couldn't have ended the phase, I think, any better. I mean, it really went out on all of the high/low notes. And especially with Eye of the Storm, Marchion has been the kind of the character that we don't really know what his relationship ties are, or does he care about other people, what are his motives, and finally getting that answered in Eye of the Storm as well. I appreciated the relational depth that we saw, whether it was with, Kiev and Skier, or it was Avar and Maru. I mean, God, that last conversation was heartbreaking. And then, yeah, like getting to know Markion's family history was just great. So they killed it.
Yeah. I'm just gonna jump in and say I agree completely. I think that the High Republic has always been amazing because it shows the vulnerability of the shining hero so well. I
Mhm.
think that every book, every comic has been all about showing us these people who are, without irony or undercutting, heroes. It's very much like the Golden Age DC hero, right? Like before Superman got dark or before any kind of things happened, like they were just good people that saved people. And that's basically like the High Republic Jedi. And I love that it's shown us those feats kind of in the first two waves. And then this trade, especially within wave 3, shows kind of when that all comes crashing down, then where does your heroism go? What can you kind of latch onto? And I love the dichotomy of Skier being like, having a moment of darkness, having his lightsaber, taken by Avar, but then at the end being like, nope, my heroism defines me. Whereas Avar being like, I'm the leader. But when push comes to shove, her darkness and anger at the injustice of the universe wins out. And that final kind of image of Kiev holding Avar is so powerful because it shows what I think a lot of us feel in the present day, that the younger generation is going to have to really shoulder a lot of responsibility that they're not ready for because the older generation has been beaten down so hard. And I think that that's a very powerful message leading, like you said, Tim, right into Eye of the Storm, showing that while these two generations are trying to find light and goodness, the evil is working and the evil is winning and the evil never sleeps. And the fact that the last page that literally says the end of phase 1 is the galaxy is mine, it's me, I'm here, Markion Row, ha ha ha. Like that's the last beat. And I think that's such a strong choice that really makes this volume kind of the final word on phase 1. And I love that they respected the comic medium enough to do that. So absolutely loved it.
Absolutely. Just take a kind of step back. I think when we did our review of our summary of Volume 2 of the High Republic, I had some harsh criticisms of it, not because it was a bad story, but because the way Volume 2, they had to split it in half between like 2 story arcs. So this one, like rereading these 5 issues, it felt like a breeze. Like these 5 issues flowed so well together and it moved so quickly. It felt like rereading these issues felt great. So like this is an amazing conclusion to a great story, and I'm glad that the trade paperback collects a good like a really good story arc here. And then we get the, for like a more appropriate term, the icing of the cake, which is the Eye of the Storm, which is
it really is, yeah,
amazing little novels that like essentially will like I'm so glad they broke it up into small little vignettes so we can get snippets and pieces of his life so we can really dive into what makes him who Marchion is. So without too much further ado, let's go ahead and get into the summary. So Emma, will you take issue number 11?
Yes, I will. All right. So starting with issue.
That cover, my God.
I know.
It's already hitting me.
When I was pulling all of the covers for this, and each cover I was like, that's a good cover. That's a really good cover. That's an even better cover. Like they're all so good. So I'm glad I did that. We can look back on all the covers. So all right. Issue 11 starts out with Kiev and Tarek being confronted by the Nihil's super weapon, the Leveler, and they're driven insane by the attack. Sarah leads their fellow Jedi to the planet Zeus to try to save what they can, and Avar and Skier hop aboard Vectors to attack the Nihil below. Skier bests Zetar in his armor and saves Kiev, but Lorna D is set to escape as Avar reaches out with the Force to hold her back, a la Rey in The Rise of Skywalker, or a la Ahsoka in Siege of Mandalore. I always love that move, like the...
Yes.
I love
or
that.
was it Star Killer and Force Unleashed with the Star Destroyer? Yeah.
Or from the High Republic Adventures.
Yeah.
It's a great move.
Classic. All right, so that was the end of issue number 11. On to issue number 12. Avar Kriss can't stop the ship that Lorna is on and touches upon something dark inside of her while attempting it. She lashes out and busts Skier for acting out and takes his lightsaber and his rank of Jedi. But then he's like, oh, you need a trial in order to do that. So kind of caught her on a technicality there.
I've read the bylaws.
You clearly haven't. Back at Starlight, Avar amasses her forces and information to strike at the heart of the Nihil at their great hall in space. And Keeve and Skier share a moment as he begins to forgive and heal himself. With their motivations all cemented, Avar, Keeve, and Skier and the rest of the Jedi fly to the fight. And that was issue 12. Issue number 13. This is like one of my favorite covers. It's so good.
Yeah, it's
gives me
genius.
like major like prequels vibes. Something.
You know what this
something
is? It's the exact thematic opposite of the Vader Rogue One hallway.
Yes.
Yes.
Because it's all the blaster bolts, but she's just defending instead
Exactly.
of.
Oh, so good.
Wow.
All
Star
right.
Wars.
Issue number 13. My goodness. The assault catches the Nihil unaware, and Avar quickly drives through the forces, but her rage and deadly intent cause a conflict between her and Keeve. Taking advantage of this, Lorna D in Zetar's power suit attacks and almost overwhelms the Jedi, but Avar rallies and disarms Lorna, holding her saber high, channeling her inner, she is too dangerous to be left alive. So that was
It's a powerful image.
13, and I believe Timothy has the next
That's
one.
me.
Let me line that up
Yes.
for you. All right, go for it.
On a sidebar, I really love that Zetar calls Keeve Little J. That's
I know.
just super random.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's a very like Harley Quinn Joker kind of.
Oh my
thing.
God.
But
yeah.
also, I
That's
love
the
that
only
she.
thing I can think of.
I love that she knows what he's talking about, though.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly.
For real.
Exactly. All right. Anyways, issue number 14. Keeve again interferes with Avar's rage, and together they take Lorna as well as many other Nihil captive. En route to Starlight, they're held by Stellan Geos, the beautiful man that he is, who informs Avar she has been removed of command on Starlight. More confusion is brought to the forefront when an explosion racks the station. Boarding the Jedi are attacked by the familiar, dead space, and the Force. And then we go to issue number 15. Which is this cover is so cool because of how it mirrors issue number one.
First one.
And it's just devastation. All right. On the brink of being devoured, Skier steps up and saves his fellow Jedi from the beasts, stays behind to hold them off as Avar and Keeve search for survivors. Keeve rescues Tarek and Saret, but Avar tries to save Maru, who is holding the whole station together. But Maru stays, saving Avar so she can lead the way again. The series ends as Keeve Trennis holds a weeping Avar Kriss as newfound strength burns in her as starlight burns in the atmosphere. So heartbreaking.
I'm proud
Why,
of finding
Cav?
that
Why?
summary. Yeah,
That was very, very awesome, Caleb. It still pulls at the heartstrings.
Oh, good.
exactly
Cruel and
Even-
unusual punishment is what that
For
is.
real.
Yes.
Mhm.
Alrighty.
Even when that's an amateur like me takes my pin to it. All right, so on to even darker matters. Let's move on to Eye of the Storm issue 1. Again, these are broken up into little vignettes. So the first one is The Truth. On the planet Evron, a race called the Evrani, or sometimes referred to as caretakers, lived their best as they could until an environmental change brought about a cultural devastation that also brought about a cultural change within the people. No longer capable of trust, they fled to the stars and began to focus on just their own self-preservation. Next is The Lie. Here we see Asgar Rowe and his mother discussing little Martian Rowe 20 years before the main plot gets started. Asgar kills his own mother to take control of the Nihil, and then sends his own son to fight for his right to control the storm. And then next up is The Kill. 10 years later, Asgar lays dying on the floor as Martian comes across his battered body and watches his old man die. Taking up the helmet, Martian becomes the Eye of the Nihil. And there's a lot more going on in these things, but it's so dense. I just have to kind of skim off the edge here.
Yeah, I noticed how like wordy they were. I'm shocked that you got it down to just this.
They're really like novellas.
They really are. Each one of these is amazing. So if you have not, and for some reason you're watching this, boy, you need to read these issues. All right, Eye of the Storm issue number 2. We start off with The Wreckage. Chancellor So is holding council on Coruscant, trying to figure out what they can do with this new enemy of the Republic, Martian Row, rallying the defense force and the Republic to track down any information. But the Jedi make a statement that they are holding back, and they are currently in the dark as to what is killing and hunting them. Next up is The Hunt. This rewinds a little bit to months before the attack on Starlight Beacon, as Roe leads a near suicide mission to an unnamed planet to retrieve an unnamed creature. He weaponizes his warrior's loyalty to the Nihil and manages to land on the planet designed to kill outsiders, capturing several Nameless with his strange power rod. They escape with many more Jedi killing Nameless. Next is The Triumph. Roe delivers a speech to his now emboldened Storm. He revels in his triumph and his plan moving forward. The Storm Seeds, he uses them to cut off the Outer Rim, devastating the Republic relief fleet, marking his territory across the galaxy. And lastly is The End. Once more, Roe gloats, this time to capture Jedi Master Orbitok, as he unleashes a leveler, Nameless or Shriek Ray, to husk the Jedi, as Roe smiles upon all he has wrought.
Man, those are
That's the gist. All right, thanks for coming, everybody. That was
Wolf.
Yeah. This is where I have to out myself. I'm a Marquion Rowe, with the hard.
Was that what came first? I
folks.
can't remember.
I don't know. Who's to say? Marcion was the audio first, and that's where Mark Thompson said it, and that's usually the go-to, but in my soul. Anyway, gosh, Emma, you're showing these panels on screen right now, and like what I really love, I believe this is the GNT art instead of Ario on these issues, and Keeve's face full of fear is just so palpable in these issues. Like when she comes in touch with the Nameless, with the Shrieker Eye, like it is like, oh my God, this is, you really see that she's younger than we think, because we know her as a protagonist, we know her as an awesome person, but there is such a difference. And then we get to the heroism of things like Skier here, like leaping out of the Vector, being like, I am coming to save the day. And it's
missing
like, oh, there are different levels. Missing a hand. Oh God, but there's so many moments of like high victory, high heroism, and then high tragedy, high fear, and like, yeah, it really takes you on the journey.
Yeah, and even like Avar almost like rubs it in her face, when she's kind of like in her dark, kind of moments that like you doubt yourself, and I was like, oh, don't rub it in her face, my goodness.
Dude, we're gonna talk about Avar here. I see later in the outline. I got some
words?
Complicated thoughts about Avar.
Ooh,
I love her. I love her. She's one of my favorite characters, but it's a good trade for her.
I think I get it. Yeah.
So let's start with the kind of the main throughput of this whole series, Keeve Trinnis. Since we're now at the end of this series and we've come to the end of her arc, how would you guys say has she changed over the course of the series? Like we talked about her still being like uncertain, like we definitely have seen a much more galvanized Jedi Knight at the end of this series here. Like, how do you think we've seen this change over her?
Well, at the beginning of the series, I don't think she would have kind of had the guts to stand up to Avar, and now she does. Like she kind of feels like she has that, I guess authority. Maybe because she's had some more experience, and she went off undercover with the Nihil for a little bit. But I honestly think that sometimes it's like if you go out and kind of do missions and get more kind of real experience. I feel like that definitely translated into her increase in confidence. Like she kind of like felt her place. Like Skier, he was weakening, and she kind of felt like she needed to step up, I think, in a way. And sometimes, like, when there's a necessity to do something, you just kind of have to do it. And I feel like that's what she did. But you can definitely still see like her kind of like doubtfulness and questioning of herself peeking through sometimes. So, and I think that kind of shows that her growth was like almost a little too fast in a way.
Like one thing I will say I really appreciate is we started like the first issue was her getting knighted, and for a lot of people that you think, oh, that's like the graduation, like they are now an adult, they are now a capable person. But it wasn't until the end of this series that we 15 issues, like almost a year of the internal timeline later, that she's finally become herself. And I think that's a really important sort of lesson to most people around her age, and those who just graduated high school or college, of like, you're not, even though it might feel like you're expected to be the person and the go-to and responsible and wholly formed to yourself, it's okay to still be learning and figuring things out at this point in your life.
That hit me hard.
It's real, man. I
True.
It's
It's
that exact
100%.
same thing. And one thing that I love that you said about that, I wanted to isolate, because I have all three trades here with me. Ario, Justin, Ario is such a next level artist, because I wanted to showcase on camera here tonight, like two major things with Ario. So from the first volume, we have Kiev and Avar's first meeting, which is when she gets knighted, right? So this face is one of wonderment because her idol is like knighting her. Like she literally says, like, Avar, Chris, you're Griffin amazing. Like that's her first thing. Like look at the hope in her eyes and the joy. And then the last thing we see with her and Avar is this panel. And it is a resolute face holding her hero from 15 issues earlier. And like there is not an ounce of kind of wonderment or awe. There is a resoluteness in Kiev, and I think that's really what I've seen with Kiev from beginning to end, even in just 3 volumes, which is, I mean, in the terms of comics, is nothing really. And it wasn't even rushed necessarily from a narrative standpoint. It was really told well. She had to grow up so fast, and I loved watching her start as the awestruck Padawan to Knight, being like, I'm so excited to be a Jedi because I'm going to be like Avar. And then at the end, she realizes the order has changed completely. I now have to be better than Avar because Avar is now breaking a bit. And my new duty is to be better than my hero. And I'm like, what a burden to carry when you're that young. Couldn't imagine it. She is great.
Well,
I love
and
her.
the relationship that she has with Skier as well, she wants nothing more than to make him proud of her. And I think that through all of these 15 issues, he is still in the picture somewhat, at least a little bit.
Yeah.
And so there's always that kind of crutch that she can fall back on. And she says in that very first issue, like, I'm going to make him proud, no matter what it costs. Like, I'm going to make him proud. And even though it's a bit of a trope, I mean, like Obi-Wan dies in A New Hope in order to Luke to go on and fulfill his journey, and then Qui-Gon has to die for Obi-Wan to do the thing. It's kind of the same thing here. Like once Skier seems to be relatively out of the picture, that's when she's like, okay, I can't fall on my laurels anymore. I don't have a crutch. I literally have no choice because yes, my hero is at my feet and the person I would typically lean to is nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
And it's so, I mean, imposterism is real. And to see her overcome that in that moment and decide, it's whatever it takes, I'm going to do the thing. It's so empowering. And I love everything about it.
Absolutely.
Oh God, she's such a good character, you guys.
She really is.
So good.
All right. So now here's the interesting thing about Trinus is she was referenced in, I think it was Dooku Jedi Lost. Maybe all we know is that there was a Jedi with the name Trinus that left a Jedi. Is this the same one? Here's the thing, we end the series with her so powerful, so on fire to save the galaxy, and after seeing her master die and be broken, could this Jedi be the same one who would walk away from the Order? Or Is this a different one? Could it be one of her descendants? Or
I mean, Anakin was the chosen one, right? I mean, I feel like
is something more terrible in store for her?
Yeah, I mean, I think she's always been a bit brazen, right? And I think we've seen that through the 15 issues as well. I mean, yeah, she's not very sure of herself, but she projects this kind of cockiness, I guess, from time to time. And she's always swearing, always.
Yeah.
But no, I think that, yeah, I very much think that it could be her. You know, in the High Republic, we're seeing all of these young Jedi faced with so much at once. I do think there's going to be a point where there will be some kind of a break for her.
Yeah, I don't think there's an accident that Cavan wrote Dooku and then Cavan wrote this and brought her in. I mean, I think they have a lot of fun being coy now and then, but I think it makes sense. I think that Keeve's story will eventually be one that shows that the Lost 20 is not a cast judgment on evil Jedi. Like, this is not what happened. I think that the Jedi have always been a tool narratively to show kind of once you get to absolute power or overly dogmatic power, then people can leave for good reasons and things can splinter. And I think that even though the High Republic Jedi are in such a great spot, like dogmatically, theologically, I think eventually by the end of these phases in the High Republic, we're going to see Keeve especially become one of the Lost 20 because of something further that splinters. I don't know what it's going to be, because it has to be something that pushes her beyond way seeking, because that's clearly on the table for now. So maybe do they take that away and she disagrees with that, or is it something that she's like, it's nope, I'm not just way seeking, I'm not just taking time like Yoda, I am actively leaving when I became a master. Because yeah, Justin, you said all the Lost 20 are at the rank of master. So she has to go through it, see how the sausage is made, and then eventually say, nope, that's not me. And I think we're going to get it.
I feel like this, like the end of issue 15, I feel like that was kind of almost the start of her becoming like disillusioned with the Jedi, because I mean, like we've said a bunch, like, her hero is suddenly, at her feet, kind of like, going dark, and now
she had to stop her from murdering someone.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, now
Keeve
is the one
directly disobeyed her to bring Skier back.
Exactly. Right. Keeve is like being her hero's keeper, and like that's not how that's supposed to work. So I almost feel like this could be like one of the events that sort of kicks off some sort of a cascade of events that then causes her to say, well, do I even want to like be associated with this anymore? Right. I could certainly see that happening. But I could also see, she lives, and I think we can assume that the Leveler's coming back. Maybe that causes some sort of like craziness. I mean, she's had like she's been like infested with the Drengir, and then she's had contact with the Leveler. Like, that stuff probably messes you up really bad.
She's had it sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, so I could certainly, Cavan did this on purpose, and
yes,
yeah,
we know that.
I think it's like it's almost a definite in my mind. When I first heard that, I was like, maybe it's like one of her, like a long lost Trennis or whatever, or maybe she didn't. I thought it was just like kind of a throwaway thing, but now I really truly think that it's going to happen at some point, and I think we are going to see it, because I don't think that there's enough time for her to like, if for some reason she were to have a kid or something like that, I don't think there's enough time for that kid to then become a Jedi Master by the time of Dooku Jedi Lost and then leave the Jedi Order.
Right.
So I think it has to be her.
Okay. So moving along to Skier, her master. He's endured a lot. He has suffered a lot. Like, he starts this whole series having experienced immense trauma, having lost his arm here, essentially cutting off his connection with the Force. I don't have too much more to add. I felt like we haven't already picked on here, but I do have a quick question for you to kind of open things up. Do you think the Force crippled his connection with it so that he could save his Padawan one last time on Starlight.
Doesn't he say that that's kind of what he thinks? Like it was the Force's will that he, or it was that illness. What was that called? Does anybody remember?
Miscare, illness, Markir, I think.
Yeah, you're close.
I forget what it was called, but I think that medically, sure, but I think we kind of get a slight Rebels spoiler ahead. If you haven't watched Rebels.
Syndrome.
There it is.
Syndrome.
There it is. Okay. But I think that there's a point in Rebels where right before a character dies, something kind of inexplicably physically happens, and it's the Force willing it, essentially. And I think Star Wars is very good about that, that we can have long-term things, but at the end, the Force can pull something special because it is as the Force wills it. I mean, Force Skier's last words are, this is the way it was always meant to be. The Force is with me now and forever. And I think that that's not a moment of severing Force connection. That is a moment, I would argue, of actually being open to the Force the most he's ever been in his entire life. And I think whether he was using that to draw the Nameless to him, whether it was like his final burst of energy that he had, I think that in that moment, yeah, maybe mechanically, if this were a game, the Force sensitivity wasn't as much because he would have been weak, blah, 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 fine. But it's a story, and it's a story about a hero, and I think at the end of it, the Force is with him, much like Chirrut at the end of Rogue One. He's like, this is my moment, the Force is with me, this is my last sacrifice for the one that I love, and I think that's where he ended.
Yeah, because who else would have stopped the leveler? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like everybody else was Force sensitive, and his connection was already kind of on the ropes. So
About to say,
I do definitely think that it was like like the Force had like planned it that way. I think that's why he's kind of been deteriorating throughout this entire series, like completely. I mean, he hasn't been well since like the first issue.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, it was that final moment of self-actualization. It was finally coming to terms with who he is, his status in life, his connection to the Force or not. It was the Stellan Gios, I know who I am.
You bastard.
I know.
How dare you?
I know.
This is a comic show, Tab.
I know, but it's his moment where, you know, this is his most fully realized as a Jedi since issue 1. This is the thing that we are supposed to do, and this is my capacity to do the thing in. And it's that parting couple of panels with him and Keeve and that final goodbye was devastating. But it's some of the best work I think I have read in High Republic for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
They know how to hurt us.
So speaking of hurting, let's move on to Avar Kriss. Now, was her supposed obsession with tracking down the head of the Nihil the right move? She was punished for abandoning her station by the Council and by Stellan Gios. Do you think they were in the right by punishing her? And even if she had stayed, would her presence on Starlight have changed anything?
Ooh,
that's an interesting question.
Yeah,
I honestly, I think that they were right to punish her because she like clearly disobeyed the orders. But in terms of like whether she was correct in, you know, kind of chasing the head of the Nihil, I mean, I think she was doing it for the right reasons. I don't think it was like effective though, because I honestly think in order to, you know, defeat an enemy of that size, you'd almost have to like get everybody working together instead of, you know, trying to do it on her own. I almost feel like maybe you know, as noble as we like to think she is, part of me wonders like if the hero of Hetzel thing kind of got to her head, thinking that, you know, she could kind of in a way take on like the big bad by herself and, you know, be the hero again. And sorry, I'm so distracted. Morden is being so cute right now.
Oh, is he?
Oh my god, he was. Yes, so cute.
Oh, hey, bud. There he is.
Yes, he knows something sad is happening.
He knows it's happening. He's trying to comfort me.
So yeah, I think she had the right intentions. She didn't go about it the best way. I feel like maybe if she had, gone to the council first, maybe recruited some more help and maybe made a plan, coordinated some intelligence. We always say that things in Star Wars would be better if people just communicated. I think that's the exact same thing here.
Yeah. Well, that's the irony about Avar here too, is that her force power is quite literally connecting people. It is listening to the song. I mean, that's Light of the Jedi. The first thing she did was, listen, I'm going to connect all of you in like a pseudo battle meditation so we can move this thing to avoid catastrophe. And then I agree with you, Emma. I think that she had the best intentions to go. And obviously, like, she stopped some of it. Like, they stopped Lorna, they did their thing. But at the same time, I think the council, as you said, was right to punish her because there are reasons, there are rules that you are the marshal. And when the marshal abandoned the post, the marshal that can connect people through the force for a more effective thing, when she left, an attack happened that destroyed the station. So I think that, like, can we promise that if Avar had been there, she could have connected everyone and figured this out quicker and kind of avoided catastrophe? You can't prove a negative. You can't. But that being said, if anyone could have maybe connected everyone in a way, who else do you look at but the marshal at that point? So I think while it makes sense, you can't deny that it had an effect, which is also why I think she's so distraught at the end, is realizing that she'll never know either if she could have stopped this. And that's why like we see on the screen right here, the admonishment by Stellan to his friend, but also coworker, is so intense because she knows he's right.
This scene hurt a lot. Like,
it did.
Just like knowing their past, and then knowing that he took her job because she's abandoning her post. It was just like everything hurt at that point.
Yep.
And that's when you knew everything was going down the drain.
Well, and this is also where I think I would plug that if you've exclusively read the comics, that's super dope. And I would encourage you to go back and also read the novels if you haven't, because there's also a lot of context from Stellan's side of things. And, they've got Nameless possibly running around on the station. And like, so everyone's tensions are high and manipulated in such a way that if they weren't there, maybe that conversation could have been a little bit nicer and friendlier.
And he was dealing with a jackass at this time, Coley Lynn.
That too.
Yeah.
That too.
Oh, Coley Lynn. Oh my God.
Yep. And the annoying robot.
Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, there's so much going on. I think she was right to go and do the things that she did, but yeah, the communication piece is so vital. It was hard to see the most effective person at that taken out. But I like the way that it played out story-wise though. And I like that Avar kind of, I would kind of argue that this comics run is more Keeve's story than it is anyone else's, but Avar was still very definitely a focal point. And as one of the big three in this line, with Elzar and Stellan as well.
Oh, that page.
I know.
This one always gets
it's something. It's God mode. That's what she's doing. She's going Super Saiyan.
She's going God mode. Ario's going God mode.
Yeah,
everyone's going God mode. It's funny that you say that, Tim, because I said on our panel at Celebration that like it's amazing that they put one of the biggest characters in the High Republic in Avar in the comics, and she gets literally all of her character growth in the comics, because if you don't read the comics at all, you only see like the hero of Hetzal. You don't get the whole like struggling with the darkness and trying to like save the whole galaxy, putting the galaxy on her own shoulders. You don't get to see any of that, and so that's just another reason why comics are so important to this initiative.
Yep.
All right. So speaking of her title as the hero of Hetzal, with the fall of Starlight, what does Avar really have left? Like, she's the hero of Hetzal, but Hetzal's now in the Outer Rim and has been, I'm assuming, cut off from the rest of the Republic. Like, everything she has striven for these last months has been suddenly destroyed or taken away from the Nihil. How much more do you think her psyche can really take? I mean, she's got to be at the end of her rope here.
Well, you know what? Every Wednesday on Disney Plus, there's a new show called Obi-Wan Kenobi, and we get to witness this in real time, which I think is great, because I think it's honestly, like, all jokes aside, it's a very similar story.
Yeah.
It's watching two master Jedi of their craft who had their entire world now kind of literally and figuratively destroyed in front of them, and they have to figure out how to go on. Now, Avar naturally has way more support than Obi-Wan did. I don't think she's going to go into exile for 10 years, but I do think that there is a similar vibe now when we get back into probably phase 3. Again, we have no confirmation, but I'm assuming we're coming back to these characters after this little flashback in phase 2. And I think it's going to be her going into a lot of meditation, into like taking steps back. I don't think we're going to see her in leadership right away. Again, I think we're going to see her and Elzar maybe having to like kind of figure out how they form again. Do they have to have people like Keeve take over and charge on? But I think Avar is really going to go through a lot of silence and contemplation about what the Force is and what the Song of the Force sounds like now, because I think its discordance is very different.
I'm gonna actually like use this question to make a prediction. So I think she's about to deal with a whole lot of survivor's guilt, because guess who should have been on that station? Not Stellan Geos, my friends. So I think that that's going to like she's gonna go through some rough times, and then
she literally saw her friend Maru sacrifice himself because he said, "Oh, you're the one who has to survive, not me."
Right. But I think that like in the back of her mind, she was like, wait, Stellan's in my place, and now Maru's gonna die. I should take Maru's place instead to like even the scales, and then he didn't let her do that, and like so now she's got double, the survivor's
at least
guilt.
double, yeah,
at least double.
Awful.
So the other part of my prediction is that
double the survivor's guilt, twice the fun.
Oh goodness, I think that I don't think we're gonna see her like if phase 3 does go back to this time period, which I think it's safe to assume that it will. I do not think we're gonna see her in the comics again, because like Eric said, a lot of her upcoming like trials and tribulations are gonna be emotional and internal, and that doesn't really work in the comic setting like a whole lot. So I think that she's gonna kind of be like this, one of the stars of the books, and trying to figure out like, okay, how do I deal with what just happened, and do I still try to go for the leader of the Nihil, or do I change my ways because it's not working still? I think we're going to be getting a lot of that, but I think she's in for some rough times.
Yeah.
Okay. So moving on to some of the darker side of this thing, let's talk about, she's kind of like a fairly major character in this last bit here, Lorna D. She had a very rough time of these in this last volume, getting captured, getting disarmed. Last time we saw her, she just killed Jedi Master Orbelin and was escaping on a ship. Do you think she's done with the Nihil now? Do you think she's running from Ro?
That's a hard question.
I think yes. I think that she, based on Tempest Runner and this, I think that she is realizing that only person out for Lorna D is Lorna D. And I don't think this is going to be so that's time for predictions on my side, I guess. I don't think it's going to be, I'm going to team up with the Jedi because Markion's the real villain. No, I don't think it's that thing. I do think that she is maybe taken off the board in the term of the grand scheme. I think that she wanted the Nihil to be great. I think she wanted to make money and make a name for herself. Say her name, never forget her, that kind of thing. But Markion's plan is clearly so far above that now that I think she's going to definitely be off and do her own thing. And I guess my question is, I don't know if Markion cares about her right now. Like, is she running from him? I don't know if he's chasing her, frankly.
Yeah. That's a really good counter question, because you're right, like he doesn't really seem to care about like much other than his own cause right now. Like I mean, obviously she has like Nihil assets like ships and people, but Martian probably has this like theory that he could just steal more ships and he can just recruit more people. So it's almost like infinite. Like he could find another leader. In fact, he probably even thinks it's like easier now because now there's less Tempest runners to like squabble against each other. Like,
Yep.
he might even see this as a victory. I don't know. Like,
yeah,
I'm like kind of.
He was gonna kill him anyway, right?
Yeah,
I mean, there's no way
exactly.
there were gonna be Tempest runners once this was all over.
Oh yeah, you're right.
No.
Like once Martian had his victory, they were all gone anyways. Like,
Yep.
I mean, if he can kill his own father, he can kill them. Like, it's
Exactly.
Honestly, like, I'm excited to see what happens with Lorna because, I mean, as we see in Tempest Runner, like, you cannot hold this woman in a cell for very long. So, like, it's like at that point, it's like, what do you do with her? Literally, your options are she's gonna escape at some point, or you just have to kill her. But they're not gonna kill her. I mean, the story would have been easier if Kiva just like let her kill her because then we wouldn't have to deal with the possibilities. But I'm glad that she's still in the cards though, because she's a super interesting character. And by the way, she is freaky in the comics. Like, I mean, I could picture her, but I kind of pictured her more like Hera, like softer features, and because that's that's one of the only like prominent green Twi'leks that we have reference for. And then you see her drawn in the comics, and it's like, whoa, she is intense.
Yeah, I think even though we got a lot of her story or some of her story in Tempest Runner and like her background, I still think there's a lot we can get with her, even if it is just as a blunt instrument. Like Markion is clearly the ultimate big bad, especially the way that he takes his name at the very end, like, I'm doing this for me, everything, the galaxy is mine. But I would still love to see her as a kind of rogue element, just mass chaos, having the time of her life, blowing stuff up. Like, sign me up for that.
I have a pretty major theory that I want to expand on, but first I want to ask you guys real quick, should Avar have killed her? Like, is her survival going to be better or worse for the galaxy? And I know Jedi killing the prisoners is a bad thing, but in her escape, she killed Master Orbelin, the archivist. Like, she's
sucked.
Just out of like, she just destroyed his like thing. Like, in not killing her there, like almost directly, a Jedi Master was killed, and she is still at large.
Yeah, I think that this is. Yeah, Tyler said in the chat, Jedi don't kill, I think, is still the predominant theme as far as unarmed, like, prisoners. If there had been during a fight, I think if they had been actively fighting and she had died as a result of battle wounds, I think that overall that may have been better for the survivability of some characters. That being said, I think that, like with Anakin and Dooku, once a Jedi starts killing in cold blood, even one person that maybe stopped even that stopped the Clone Wars, really, to an extent, the ramifications of the dark side being that prevalent in a Jedi's life, I think leads to further chaos down the road.
Justin, Justin in the comments. Oh my God, Elzar man,
hold
my beer. Oh.
There's still good in him.
Justin.
There's still,
oh my God.
there's still good in him.
Elzar man has never done anything wrong in his life. I will fight for my baby boy, Elzar man.
Oh my God, that was really
even that
good.
one
He is
night
pure.
stand.
He is pure and great.
To answer the question though, I don't think that she should have. Well, if we're talking about the fate of the galaxy, I think she should have killed her. If we're talking about Avar staying like a nice pure Jedi, did the right thing. So it's like, it's a really tricky question. I have no idea how to answer it.
All right, to quote a not space wizard, the pity of essentially of Kyiv might just be the thing that will save the galaxy. Kind of like, I'm getting like, I'm trying to make an analogy between her and Smeagol or Gollum here, because this is my grand theory here. This may not come true at all, but I think Lorna D will be the one who kills Martian Rowe.
All right. I like the proclamation, and I think it's absolutely possible.
I think it's a strong statement. We still don't know who killed Asgar Rowe. It might have been Lorna. We have never confirmed nor denied that.
Yeah, or
And-
started to kill
Exactly.
Asgarro. We know
And
who finished killing
kind
Asgarro.
of finished him off. So, what I wanted to say is, we'll get into a little bit more with Rose, but in his backstory, we clearly see the only people who like kill like Rose are their own family. Like we saw his grandmother be killed by his father, and they talk about that internal family conflict all the way down. Marcion does not have any other biological family, but the closest thing that we can say is left now is Lorna D.
Hey man, every
Lorna
family
D
has their
is-
traditions, and I don't want to like begrudge anyone their family traditions.
Exactly.
If you murder each other, maybe that's just what you do. And some people just go to church on Easter, some people kill each other. Like, I don't know. It could be a different thing.
Exactly.
There is also the little bit where it's possible that she was the one that delivered the final blow to Asgard, right? I can't remember
Exactly.
if we've talked about
Oh,
that.
yeah.
So maybe there's some poetic justice that comes back or something, and she delivers the final blow to Marcion.
As I said, I think
That's
you know,
cool.
I do not think Marcion will survive. Will this whole fiasco, this whole thing, he will die. But I think it's going to be Lorna D who does him in.
I would like to see that.
That
honestly.
makes the most.
I don't mind that at all.
That makes
It'd
the
be
most
fun.
thematic and most direct sense. I think.
Yeah, because would a Jedi do it? I don't know.
That said, like we cannot like
Yeah.
like the ending of like that of like a Jedi killing Ro would be a really great downer ending to kind of play into like the fall of the Jedi. But
Right.
I
True.
think it's Lorna that's going to do it.
I like that.
We'll see.
Okay, we'll see in 2.5, 3 years.
Watch, it's Yoda that's just like out for blood. Like, bro, whoa!
And he's still portrayed as this like saint in the Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
But meanwhile,
And then he
just,
brings
killed a dude.
his cane. He's like, I was like, bro, we just saw you. You
I
just cut his
know.
head off.
That
All right.
reminds me of like in like Lego Star, like the old Lego Star Wars, like the complete saga one. Like you could only run fast if Yoda had his lightsaber out. But then when he had his cane out, he was all old and weak, and it took forever. and it took
He's
forever
just
to get
fooling all of
anywhere.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've talked about him a bunch, but let's move on to the man of the last couple's issues here, Marcion Ro himself, the Eye of the Night
Okay. Good.
God, here we go.
Good. I know I knew it was like when we first started thinking, like, wait a sec, we're talking about Ro here, and Eric's on the team. Oh
I
no!
can set him up for it.
Exactly. So, with the conclusion of Phase 1, how do you feel that Marcion here stacks up as a villain compared to all the other figures we've seen throughout the extended universe?
Whoa.
Oh,
Like,
Tall
let's not pull in like the main ones like Vader or the Emperor, just like
Yeah.
things in other side medias we have seen. Blanket statement. He is a more threatening villain, I think, than we have seen in the original Thrawn trilogy.
I would agree with that statement.
I would be hard pressed to argue with that.
Yeah.
I said way back when I thought he had the most impressive villain introduction since Vader, straight up.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that like hit in Light of the Jedi and everything up till now, including the Eye of the Storm issues, especially within this volume, really just show how deep his machinations go, how twisted he's willing to be. And we're still weirdly in the introduction, I think, of his true level of depravity.
We
so
haven't gotten
yeah.
his full history, his full like family backstory yet. I think we will get that in Phase 2. But
yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, and
So
the
yes,
thing
I
that
agree.
the thing that I like about him so much is Star Wars, I think, and especially Legends, and I haven't really taken too deep of a dive into a lot of Legends comics and such, but I do know that historically Star Wars tends to go, let's give the good guys even stronger force powers, and then let's bring in a bad guy who has even stronger force powers so that the
Right.
good guy can get even stronger force powers.
yeah.
And I love that Marcion comes along different to Thrawn, because Thrawn uses his brains to do quite a bit, but Marcion is the leveler, being let's level this playing field out. Let's take away the thing that makes the Jedi special,
Right.
and see if they can actually still do the thing. And I love that kind of storytelling. So instead of trying to just amplify and my toy is bigger than your toy and
The
continuing
Dragon
to do
Ball
that
problem.
game. Yes, exactly. Right. Yeah. I very much enjoy let's just take away the thing that you're good at and see if you're still good.
He's also like super hot.
He
So that
is
helps.
unnervingly hot.
Our dude, he's holding a chain
Yeah.
on the cover of they knew what they were doing.
They did. They did that
They
on
knew what they
purpose.
were doing.
Also, like,
Justin, great comment. Thrawn is lawful evil and Ro is chaotic evil. I agree. It's
Oh,
that Joker
yeah, that's
energy. You
good.
don't know what's gonna happen. Sorry, I might cut you off.
Oh no, that's okay. It's just gonna be a dumb comment about how.
Do it.
Well, that's fine.
I remember the reaction of everybody when the cover for 2 got released.
Yeah.
And it was just
Everyone
like,
lost their minds.
yes,
Like,
just
the
horniness
the
everywhere.
wiffle
Is he
bat was
holding
being
my
out.
chain?
Yes,
Am
that's
I
what
wearing
it
the
is.
chain?
Bonk.
Everybody was
Bonk,
like,
bonk, bonk.
bonk. Everybody, stop it. He's not supposed to be hot, but then they made him hot, and it's like, it's that.
Well, if
meme
you
of
read
him
The Fallen
hot.
Star, you learn a little bit about his proclivities.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
But
was
there's
also
that.
hot.
yeah, but overall, I mean, Caleb, to round out your question, like I think that in order to introduce Jedi at the height of their power within the High Republic, which is what this initiative has done, it's shown us the prototypical Jedi following the dogma of the Jedi in the best way, listening to the Force, loving each other, caring for people, and to have one villain that can threaten that entire foundation in a realistic way, and they nailed it. Like, he has to be the best. Like, in order to do that, should be impossible, but he's written well enough that it works.
And he's such a big enough threat that he can take out like the symbol of the Republic that is, should be like impenetrable, indestructible, filled with secure. Like, he can do that, and
he
then
can
just
penetrate
like, watch
anything, is what you're saying. Yeah, absolutely. I think it
Boy.
makes sense.
Eric, first of all, how dare you? Second of all, wow.
Wow.
You
I will
said
say-
impenetrable. I'm just saying the opposite
I know.
of that.
I set you up for it.
Well, and speaking of impenetrable, the thing of the storm seeds at the end was
Yes,
brilliantly executed.
Oh, I thought you were gonna make a joke there. No, never mind.
No.
I mean,
Gotta get my mind
storm,
out together.
do what you will with storm seeds, but
Or real
yeah,
talk,
they're,
like, cutting off
yeah,
the galaxy?
yeah, it's so
Incredible.
brilliant.
Yeah.
Yep. So then there's kind of the question of like what comes next for him. And I don't know, I kind of cheated and looked a little bit ahead at the notes. But it's like
Just go there.
so his thing, and I'll just kind of read the question, was like his big statement right at the end was that no one could tell Markion what to do. But he's kind of just following the destiny that his family kind of gave him. So, they seem to have suffered from the Jedi. There's something going on there, but it doesn't seem like he actually has any real personal stake in this fight. So like me, I have to wonder, like, what is his end goal? Is it just the storm seeds are there and we're just going to kind of hang out and party in the Outer Rim? Or like, I don't know what comes next for him other than just being the big bad in his territory.
Well, it's also
Which he
interesting.
already is.
It's already interesting that you said that, like, what is his like personal stake in it, because he's not even part of like a lot of the action. He just kind of like sets up all the pieces and then watches the chaos ensue. Like, he wasn't the one that was on Starlight, sabotaging it. He isn't one of the Tempest runners that goes on raids and stuff like that. He just kind of like sits back and watches. So I also find that interesting that, as I think we can all agree, one of the best villains, I think, in Star Wars, period, that he actually doesn't do much of the fighting. He just sets it up.
And when the chancellor is talking to all the, political figureheads there at the end, like, she catches on the fact, because they're arguing over, is it actually Ro or is he lying again? Is this the Niles, another elaborate plot, and it's still Lorna, like that whole thing? And she goes, no, but catch what he said at the end. He almost said the galaxy is ours, but he couldn't bring himself to do it. He said the galaxy is mine. And then he immediately cuts himself off from the rest of the galaxy. So I am so fascinated to see what comes next.
He's so,
it's not obvious.
He's so addicted to power. which is interesting. And I think, like, obviously those most addicted to power are those who'd never had it. And that's why, like, so many of these, like, in history, these megalomaniacal tyrants, like, are terrifying, especially when they come from not having a lot. The second that they get something, they're always terrified to lose it. And that fear, leads to anger, leads to hate. Like, it's all the same stuff in real life as well. And I think Ro, coming from this place of having zero power within his own family, to his father, and his own people losing their power, he has now found those powerful beings in the universe with the Nameless, to the Jedi, because they can defeat the most other powerful beings, which are the Jedi. So he controls the Jedi, he controls the Nameless, he also now controls space. I think he's just deciding he's not going to stop until there's not a single thing he doesn't control. And I think obviously that will kind of eventually be his downfall. But I think I love the idea that he's not the one on the front lines all the time, because you watch these, like, really terrifying historical tyrants, and the most terrifying leaders nowadays are the people in the conference rooms, are the people signing the pieces of paper. They're not the ones that are on the battlefield.
Yeah.
They're the ones, like, Ro literally basically sends suicide bombers into Starlight Beacon and goes like, go. And they do. And he's like, go ahead. I'm replacing everyone with droids.
Like, his most powerful weapon is that he has now manipulated essentially his entire army into fanatics. Like, we see that in his when he gets an entire suicide mission just to gain a few, like, beasts to hunt Jedi. He's like, the comic very clearly describes that he is manipulating and twisting these people's, like, interests to serve his own needs.
Especially Senator Staros, am I right?
Yes. No, the most terrifying leaders will always be those who can use their personal intelligence to convince people they see as lesser that they deserve more, and the only way they can get it is by turning fanaticism into action and terrorizing other people in the name of their leader. All the while, their leader does not care what happens to them. And I think that is the most terrifying thing about Marchion Ro. And I also think, I say this on Living Force all the time, writers write for the era in which they are living. And this type of villain is the most terrifying person in 2022, because these are the types of leaders all throughout the world that get the most power and have the less amount of consequence. So watching someone like Marchion Ro do it on a fictional galactic scale is just as terrifying as the ways we've seen it happen over the previous years in various parts of the world. And I think it's very intelligent and scary to introduce this villain nowadays.
Well, and leaders like that get preserved for longer than leaders that, like, get into the fray. Like, he is not at risk of dying in this way.
He's not about to get Kossev'd.
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Exactly. Like these leaders are scarier and they live longer. So that's, like, the double-edged sword of it all.
In harm's way, exactly.
Yeah.
And they get to a point where the people that follow them also stop thinking for themselves. And when they recognize someone that comes along that does something like their previous, like the predecessor that was leading them, then they're like, oh yeah, this is going to be more of the same. And I really caught it on the second read through. I'm trying to scroll through and see if I can. Whenever Eye of the Storm depicts Asgar taking over from his mother, they were like, why should we listen to you? You're just this little boy. Like, your mom was mean and she had vision and she had this. And then word for word, when Marchion walks away from Asgar's body, it's the same exact conversation. It's, why are we going to listen to you? Like, your dad was mean and he had vision.
Right.
And it was so interesting to capture that particular point. That the Nile are so far gone. It doesn't, like, nothing is going to change their mind. They're going to go rampaged. And it's just a beautiful way of capturing that, the villainy in Marchion, with the way that this group of people is just, it's just so menacing, so evil.
Absolutely. So let's start not laying to plane just yet, but let's move into the last little section, which is our discussion questions. I only have a couple here, but let's get the elephant out of the room. Of all the death in these last issues, which one hit you the hardest?
Oh,
there's a correct answer.
This is so easy, and it's Maru. because of well, and especially because of what of our interview with Ario and how he described
that put me over the edge.
Yeah,
that put me over the edge.
Me too.
You were always our shining light with that look in his eye. I'm like, how dare you, Kevin Scott and Ario and Indito? It is, yeah, it's perfect. It is not one. It's not a character that I even felt particularly super attached to throughout the run. Like, I liked him a lot.
He was in the entire series, but I will freely admit, while I was doing all the notes for all the previous roundtables, like, do we need to talk about Maru? Nah, we don't have time to talk about Maru. He's there in the background. He's a cool dude.
Yeah, and then oh my
saying,
god,
he's holding Starlight together like he always does. I'm like,
And
Yep,
it's an almost exact mirror of issue 1 again. Like, she's in the room on the ground next to the droid, and he's up in the air, literally with his hands up. And instead of manipulating the functions of Starlight, holding it together, it's just so beautifully executed by Cav and Ario that you wouldn't think that that would have been the thing to do you in, and it does every time.
Yep, good. I'm glad we all said the correct answer, because yes, it's.
Oh
my
god!
Wait,
like I'm not going
There's a second answer.
This is my answer.
Okay.
This is my answer.
I have a backup. I wonder if it's the same.
Well, this is my we'll go to yours after this one, but mine's was actually not into High Republic. It was in issue 2 of the Eye of Storm. It was the captured Jedi Master Orbituk. That was just like so brutal and cruel, because like we only saw him in the High Republic Adventures, the kids show where we saw like he was the master, and like we like he didn't like it wasn't like he was in there too much, but he's just kind of a light fun character that we saw. We had a cool thing where he had like he has narcolepsy. He has like
sleep and all the most pivotal moments.
Justin.
He has like 7 lightsabers of all the people all of his Padawans that he trained and yet outlived. Like, such a great sort of thing. And the reason Marchion kills him is just so he can get his jollies, just so he can watch someone die in front of him in despair.
I'm sorry.
Jeez.
Justin
said he's the sleeper choice.
Oh God, that's a
sleeper choice.
But yeah, just very much. But yeah, I said Orbituk just kind of got me of just like, oh wow, we're just going to remember this character that you really enjoyed in this one scene he was in. Now we're just going to watch him shrivel up like a dried shiitake mushroom.
Dang,
that's the visual.
Yeah, that one's amazing. I thought you were going. So my backup was similar. Orbalin was my other one. Also because it does that thing that only comics can do. It's the page turn and surprise. I thought it was like the way the panels were crafted was so good that it's like him freaking out, and then the silent no word, just bullet right through by Lorna D.
And she insulted
that one
him.
got me. Yes, that one really got me. But
and she called her like a ball of goo or something like that.
Yeah.
It's like,
it's our ball of goo. We love him. Yeah. They all hit pretty hard, but yeah, those three. Pretty good.
Absolutely. So one last discussion question, which kind of tied into what we were talking about with Marchion and Ro. Ro seems to be dedicated to destroying the Jedi. Do you think their retreat, where they said, listen, we have no idea what's going on, we have to fall back, we're abandoning our outposts, do you think that's part of the master plan? He now has all the Jedi in one spot. That seems really dangerous when you're pulling all the cards of a Jedi killing weapon.
Ooh.
Now that you put it that way.
Yes, but not for that reason. I say yes because I think he wanted the galaxy to watch the Jedi retreat. Because I think that he's playing a long game, which means he also knows publicity and social media. And obviously not to that extent, but like the HoloNet and all that stuff is absolutely part of his plan. He knows how to manipulate that. That's why he does the big speech and everything in Fallen Star.
Are you saying that the hidden lesson in this is that Marchion Ro is the Nihil social media manager?
He absolutely is. He started out as the intern and he's worked his way up.
He is his own boss.
He is. Yeah, I think that he wanted the galaxy to watch the Jedi physically retreat and falter and look weak on a planet from their giant space station. I I don't think he's going to militarily hit them on that planet. I think he's going to come back and let them kind of cripple themselves a bit. But I think he intended that a lot of them would survive. But the optics of that, I think, served him.
I also
And
kind
we
of feel
already
like, sorry, Tim, go ahead.
Oh, we already see that happening too, right? In the room with the chancellor and her little
Yeah.
political figureheads.
Yep.
They're like, we're going to bolster, we're going to show that we are all the Republic. This is what you should communicate to your Outer Rim territories. And then, and then the Jedi are like, no, actually, we're going to come home. Yeah. Sorry, because we don't know what's happening. and then that's the last thing that could be seen. Like if the order had already been put out and then all of a sudden the Outer Rim is cut off, that especially leaves them with no hope, which only leads into the feelings I think that we get in the original trilogy, in the prequel trilogy. I think that all of these things build to that of the Outer Rim being disconnected. The core has no interest in us. Like we can see all of these steps kind of being led that way.
I also feel like it would be like more difficult for Marchion to get like, if his goal is to kill like a whole lot of Jedi, I feel like it'd be easier if, they're spread out again. Like, I don't think he has like the firepower or the manpower to like attack them like when they're all, in a group and almost kind of like, I feel like they're almost anticipating something at this point, because they literally said where they're going. Like it makes sense that they're all going to go back, to their outpost all as one to sort of like mourn their losses and stuff like that. So they're probably on guard. So I feel like it would not be a very like smart plan if that was his plan to go ambush everybody. He's probably gonna like wait it out, almost wait for everybody to go back to like their own outposts and their own missions, and then just kind of like try to kill them off one by one. Unfortunately,
I mean that was Order 66, right?
Yeah, he's gonna like
that was it.
He's gonna do like his own version of Order 66. He's doing Order 65.
Right.
Okay, so at the very end, we need to. I think this will be a pretty easy, and we'll be able to fly this through this pretty quickly. But the final rating. So we have to go through and say everyone's like, where do you rate this book? This volume 3 of the High Republic. Emma, do you want to start?
Sure. And really quickly to remind our audience, from highest rated to lowest rated, we have masterpiece, incredible, good, fair, and mediocre. Not that we'll need any of the bottom ones, I'm sure, but just in case. And also, I left out the Easter eggs because with the High Republic, Easter eggs are hard. Like, we've talked about this before. But I feel like our audience is kind of used to having Easter eggs at the end. But yeah, basically everything just like ties back to other things in the High Republic, and, it's great.
Just read the rest of it.
Yes.
Read all the other books.
Yes, everything else. That's the Easter egg. The High Republic, period. End of story. So yeah, I think my rating, it's not really difficult, I think, for me to say that this is a masterpiece. I think just the cherry on top was Eye of the Storm. We get more insight into Marchion Ro because he doesn't appear a whole lot in the books, but when he does, he's a big presence, and just getting to know more about how he became who he was, I think was great. And then, of course, just getting to see the events of like the Fallen Star and everything else in Wave 3 from a different perspective just hurt again. And I thought that Avar's sort of like turn of events with her and how Keeve sort of dealt with that was really great to see. And I continue to feel excited about getting more of Keeve's character because I think she's easily one of my favorite Jedi in the High Republic now, especially after after this last volume where she showed just like an insane amount of growth. And I'm very pleased with how everything has like tied together, and that the comics, like, this really is kind of like the final, I mean, volume 3 plus Trail of Shadows, you get like this gigantic like stakes for the entirety of the High Republic, and the fact that that is the case in itself as a comics fan makes me extremely happy. So I'm just glad that this is out here, and that this is, I mean, I would consider this essential reading if you're a High Republic fan and you focus mainly on only the books. I think that so much happens here that you know, you're going to be confused about what happened to Avar, you know, when she comes back, and you're probably going to be wondering who her friend Kiev is. So I think that this is definitely, you know, essential, and I'm glad for that.
Exactly. While I was reading this, I felt such strong emotions, more than I have when I was reading in the other Star Wars comics. So just by that the page turn and like the gut punches and the feelings I was hit with, I cannot do anything other than rate this as a masterpiece. Like between the artwork that is brilliant by Ario, between the prose, between just like the fact that not just the High Republic, those 5 issues alone would have been a masterpiece, but the fact that they added on to this the Eye of the Storm, which just gives so much beautiful backstory and beautiful story. This whole volume is a masterpiece, and it deserves to be in any collection.
Love that.
Yep. And I'm gonna have to agree. I don't think we have seen an initiative at large in Star Wars come to a close quite like this. Firing on all cylinders, the top of their game. And even without Eye of the Storm, I think it deserves masterpiece status just on its own. The way that Cav and Ario were able to round out and give a very fitting, truly believable, earned ending to this 15 issue arc is just so good. So good. And yeah, throw on Eye of the Storm as well. I think especially for how important it was that it was communicated to read Eye of the Storm as the very last thing in the phase. I love that bold approach to making this comic be the thing that is the end cap to the whole thing. And it is also masterpiece level. So I have no more words to add because it's just so good.
Man, all right. So when we say mediocre, thinking, no, can you imagine?
Boot him. Cut his feet.
I would actually remove you from the stream.
Not even a little bit. I mean, what's more Utini than going 4 for 4? I gotta throw this in the masterpiece category. Even if it was just the Maru Avar scene and then the Avar page, that was literally my phone lock screen for weeks.
Yeah.
I think the amount of love creators have for their work does a lot for me. And I don't think you'll see folks that love their characters and their projects more viscerally on page than Cavan and Ario, especially. And like you said, Tim, the addition of Eye of the Storm really even just bolsters this up. It's like extra credit at that point. It's so good. But it's really hard to end things as well. You know, we see that a lot with trilogies. We see that a lot with book series. Like, it's really hard to end phases. And I think this ends by one being a complete story. I do think that this is a complete tale of Kiev's arc, a complete tale of the Starlight Beacon. But it does also really make you want to read the next ones immediately, coming this fall. And I think that is incredibly successful. I think that all the artists involved, writers, pencilers, inkers, colorists, cover artists, everybody is on top of their game with this trade. And I love that it's oversized. I wish more trades were this size. I love a hefty trade. So I hope that going forward, maybe some other like small little 2-issue things get put in. Like I hope we get more one-shots and things like that. That'd be a lot of fun. But overall, yeah, reading this again, even briefly today, reminded me about how much I loved it. I think that this is, since it came out, this is not a dig on other comics. I don't think another comic has reached the level of these since their release in the preceding months.
Totally agree with that.
Yeah, agree.
So, you know, which makes this a masterpiece and makes me realize, like, oh, I can't wait for this to come back. Even though we're getting good stuff now, this is just a level above.
Yeah.
So happy to round us out 4 for 4.
Our first unanimous decision.
That's true.
There it is.
Love it.
Not shocking that it came from the High Republic.
Yeah, right? Had to happen one time, though.
Yeah. Very good. All right. Well, that will round down our roundtable. This was great conversation. So as we always do before we round out the show, I tell you guys what's happening next week on all of our live shows. And for us next week, we have a special guest. We are talking about Valence and the Terminator franchise with Wes. I am going to be
so
out.
perfect.
Oh my
It is
God,
perfect.
I'm
It
so
is-
ready.
It's
Oh,
perfect
God.
on a lot of levels. Because, Wes is awesome. He's never been on Cosmic Force before. Also, I've never seen the Terminator, and he's going to be filling in for me. So it works. It works.
Perfect.
It works well.
Wonderful.
And then on Legends Look Back tomorrow, tomorrow they're doing their Star Wars Celebration recap, Legends Edition, which totally means that we spoiled Jared's tattoo for everyone. So if you're watching Legends Look Back tomorrow, act surprised.
Don't say anything.
Don't
Be quiet
say
about it.
Nothing.
Yeah, so that'll be fun. Anytime we talk about Celebration, it just makes me sad, but in a good way though. And then Eric, do you want to tell the folks what you're doing on Living Force on Monday?
Sure. We were originally going to do our Brotherhood Roundtable based on the timeline, but we just decided to push that another week with all the coming down from Celebration. Timelines have been wild. So if you're reading Brotherhood, you get another week to read that by Mike Chen. Highly suggest you do. But we are going to do our Attack of the Clones 20th anniversary celebration episode. Yes, the 20th anniversary was while we were at Star Wars Celebration. So we were a little busy last month. But we're just going to have a little love fest on episode 2. Just the four of us going over some of our favorite moments from the film. Kind of, reflecting back on it as older folks and when we first saw it as kids in the theater, how have our feelings changed about it. So if you love episode 2, coming out with us on Monday night live, 8 p.m. Eastern. And if not, of course, the Living Force feed, we're going to have that up next week on Friday.
Oh, love it. Love it. Can't wait for that. Always love a good love fest, but especially Attack of the Clones. So that'll be a lot of fun. And one more reminder for everybody that, we've got some extra content coming your way from Celebration. So now is the time, if you've been thinking about it, to join our Patreon. We would be eternally grateful. We've got some really awesome stuff coming your way. So yeah, definitely keep your eye out for that. We will let you know when it is there. And Mr. Eric Eilerson, thank you so much for coming on last minute. We had so much fun.
Course.
It's always great to have you. And
It was such a blast.
Definitely, always. And we had a discussion about this before the show, people. We're going to do something absolutely unprecedented on any UTV live show. That is, we are going to have our guest do the outro. So, Eric, you have the floor.
All right. Let's see what happens. That will do it for this week's episode of the Cosmic Force. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the show right here on YouTube, where you can hear these folks live every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern. We also encourage you to subscribe to the audio version of the podcast wherever you will get your podcast, Spotify, Apple, all the places. You can also follow us on Twitter and tweet at the show at Cosmic Force Show to stay informed about Star Wars comics happenings all throughout the week, or follow the host individually. I am at Eric Eilerson, filling in for at Ty Rags. Emma is at Irma Jedi 26. Caleb is at Caleb Laminack, and Timothy is at TC Guthrie 2. For reviews, articles, and news for the rest of the Star Wars Expanded Universe, be sure to follow utini.com or at utini_US. We also encourage you to join the Utini Discord community by going to utini.com/discord, and you can help support the show by heading to patreon.com/utini to receive exclusive perks, all the behind-the-scenes stuff, all the extra shows starting at only $5 a month. A special thank you to Brian Dooley, Patrick Ortiz, Earl Q, and Carl Sander on our Jedi High Council, and Elizabeth Cloutier, Freddie C, and Sally and Chris Eilerson on our Alliance High Command for their amazing support. Thank you to Emma, Caleb, and Timothy for welcoming me on this weekend. Thanks to all of you for watching and listening. We truly appreciate you and love you every single week. So these folks will see you next week. And as always, may the Force be with you.